So let's talk about something really interesting happening in Nigerian governance right now, the turnaround in Abia State. The new governor, Alex Otti, isn't your typical politician. He's a former top banking executive, and he's bringing a completely different playbook to the table, one that's all about data-driven execution instead of old-school patronage. We're going to break down exactly how he's doing it.
Right? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Well, in Abia, the approach seems to boil down to two key things. First, you've got the big, highly visible stuff, like rebuilding critical infrastructure. But then there's the quieter, less flashy part that might be even more important: a serious, hardcore commitment to fiscal discipline. It's a strategy straight out of a corporate CEO's handbook, and it's all about prioritizing systems over politics.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. First, we need to understand the situation on the ground before these changes. Then, we'll get into the details of this new execution model. After that, we'll see it in action, rebuilding the economic engine of Ababa, and really unpack the surprising power of a simple, consistent paycheck. And finally, we'll step back and try to answer that big question: is this a real, sustainable transformation? To really get what's happening now, we have to look back at what came before. For years, governance in Abia was kind of stuck. It was bogged down in a cycle of patronage and inertia that just stalled everything. And this hit its economic hubs, especially the famous city of Aba, really hard, leaving them in a state of decay. Look, this slide really says it all. It's a complete 180 in the philosophy of how you govern. The old way of making ad hoc, politically motivated decisions is being swapped out for a system that's all about disciplined execution and building a stable, long-term operating system for the entire state. So let's dive into this new model. The core idea is actually pretty simple, but it's powerful. Create institutions that are resilient, institutions that can outlast any one person or political cycle. The end goal? A predictable, stable environment where businesses and regular citizens can actually plan for the future and thrive. And this isn't about just chasing quick wins. I mean, think about it. A 25-year development plan, that sends a massive signal to investors and residents that the focus here is on long-term, compounding growth, not just papering over cracks. And by digitizing processes, the goal is to basically hardwire efficiency and transparency into the state's DNA. Okay, so you have this new model. Where do you start? Well, you go straight for the economic heart of the state, Aba. For decades, Aba has been known as the Japan of Africa because of its incredible manufacturing and entrepreneurial spirit. But all that potential was being choked by decades of neglect, and this quote just nails the strategy perfectly. You can think of it as economic plumbing. The new roads, the new drainage systems, the urban renewal, these are not vanity projects. They're the essential pipes and wires you absolutely have to install to get the economic engine fired up and running smoothly. Get this, over 100 roads have already been reconstructed or rehabilitated. And to put that number in perspective, we're talking about a 5 to 10-fold increase in the speed of execution compared to previous years. The sheer velocity of the change here is a huge part of the story. And you can see a really clear, logical chain of impact. When you reconstruct a major commercial road like Ohanuku Road, you're not just laying down asphalt. It's a direct strategic intervention for the tens of thousands of small and medium-sized businesses that are the absolute lifeblood of Aba's economy. So for the person on the ground, the leather worker, the garment maker, the fabricator, this is a total game changer. Think about it. Bad roads are like a tax on your business. They slow down deliveries, they damage vehicles, they increase your costs. By fixing them, the government is basically delivering a massive tax cut in the form of pure, simple efficiency. And the numbers here are pretty significant. A better road network can literally slash logistics costs for these businesses by 15 to 30%. That saving goes straight to their bottom line, which means faster inventory turnover, maybe even lower prices for consumers, and a much stronger competitive edge against imported goods. But look, the roads and the construction projects are the visible part. There's another, quieter revolution happening that might just be the most powerful reform of all, and it's all about restoring a fundamental pillar of any modern economy: paying people on time.
I mean, it sounds so incredibly simple, right? Just pay your workers. But after years of uncertainty and massive payment backlogs, making sure that civil servants and pensioners get their money by the 28th of every month, like clockwork, creates this profound ripple effect across the entire local economy.
Okay, so to really understand the impact here, we need to quickly touch on a key economic idea called the multiplier effect.
It's pretty straightforward. When you get paid and you spend money at a local shop, your spending becomes the shopkeeper's income. Then they spend that income somewhere else, and so on. The initial amount gets amplified as it moves through the economy. And here's where you see it in action. You've got over 50,000 public sector workers suddenly receiving predictable, steady paychecks. Every month, that's billions of naira being reliably injected right into the local economy. That money flows to landlords, to market vendors, to service providers. It creates this virtuous cycle of economic activity. So what this means is for every single naira paid out in salaries, it actually generates an additional 1.5 to 2 naira in economic buzz as it circulates. This isn't just about balancing the books. This kind of fiscal discipline is the stable, concrete foundation that makes all the other ambitious projects even possible. So we've got the foundations being laid, infrastructure and fiscal stability. But what does the whole picture look like? And of course, the big question is, can this thing actually last? Well, the strategy isn't just about roads and salaries. It's not happening in a vacuum. It's a holistic approach. Better security, from initiatives like Operation Crush, means businesses can stay open later, which means more commerce. Rebuilding schools and upgrading health centers, that's about investing in the skilled and healthy workforce you need for real long-term growth. All right, so let's be real for a second and look at a balanced scorecard. The speed of execution on projects, that's a clear win. The restored fiscal discipline? Absolutely, a massive checkmark. The strategic focus on Abaja makes perfect sense. But the long-term tests are still on the horizon. Things like attracting major private investment and creating jobs at a massive scale, those are the next big hurdles.
But here's the key takeaway. The point isn't that everything is perfect overnight. Of course not. The real story here is the model itself. A relentless, almost obsessive focus on execution, on systems, and on basic financial common sense. And that, right there, is a radical departure from business as usual.
Which leads us to the ultimate test, the final massive question. Can all these reforms truly unlock Abia's incredible manufacturing potential and fundamentally shift its economy from one based on consumption to one based on production? Because if the answer to that is yes, this won't just be Abia's success story. It could very well become the blueprint for economic revival across the entire region.